When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, you invited me in. When I needed clothes, you gave me something to wear. When I was alone, you took me in. Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me.
Welcome to Change the Story, a podcast by Fostering Change Washington, where we bring real stories from those who know the child welfare system best, from children who've lived it to frontline workers, experts, and leaders fighting for change. Every day, innocent children are left suffering and abuse, their voices unheard, their lives at risk. This is more than a conversation. It's a call to action to stand for life and justice for those who cannot speak for themselves. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's change the story. Hey friends, welcome to Change the Story, a podcast with Fostering Change Washington. Today I'm going to call her a friend because I got a feeling we're going to have a great long relationship. This is my friend Angela Kraemer. I'm going to let her tell you all about what she does. She is going to bring us a whole load of insight today. So, Angela, tell me, what do you do today?
So I run a visitation agency, Angela's Family Services. Been doing that for almost 18 years. So we provide family time services for children that have been removed from their home due to child abuse and neglect. Mm-hmm. And then our responsibilities during that visitation time is to keep the kids safe, both physically and emotionally, and then document what we observe. We actually see more of the parent-child interaction than anybody else involved in the case, including the social worker. And so our notes are pretty important because that's what's read by the judges. Basically, anybody that has influence over the cases will read our notes and sort of make decisions based off of that information.
That's really big. I know that we've had really good relationships with our transporters over the years, and we're always thankful that there's somebody there with eyes on the kid, eyes on the parents. That's a very important work. Tell me, can we just back up and you tell me a little bit about your story? You have it on the back of your flyer, actually, and you have such a unique story and perspective that I can see why this job is so fulfilling to you.
Yeah, so I was born addicted to cocaine and heroin. My mom was actually a prostitute, so I am the product of a John.
I like you said, I'm a product of John. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, that's I guess a nice way to put it. Of course I don't remember it, but I guess I was in the hospital for 6 weeks after I was born, detoxing from those drugs. I was, the first couple years of my life, I had some unsteadiness. I ended up being raised by my mom, who is actually my half aunt. So she's only 13 years older than me. So she was 16 and her dad died. And she moved out with me and told my biological mom, if you want her, you're going to have to fight for her.
I like her.
Yes.
I'm just...
She's
16 years
bad,
old.
Yeah.
I love that. What a fighting spirit. Good for her.
And she was really private. She didn't tell people that I wasn't hers. She just let people assume that she was messing around at 13. You know, everybody would do the math and be like... and so she was just really private about it. And to me, I looked at her as my hero. I remember being in 6th grade writing a paper about her that she was my hero. And so, she went through, she's considered relative placement. It took many, many years to get me adopted. They kept giving my biological mom chance after chance, and I went back and forth for years. But I was finally adopted when I was about 9 or 10 years old. There's lots of things to tell. I definitely, I had an older brother that wasn't so lucky. He never got adopted and was in and out of foster care and in and out of group homes. He ended up committing suicide when he was 22. So I remember, being about 13 years old and, being told that. So it's really close to my heart what I do. And when I do the work that I do and I work with the families, for me, I try and be that example of what you can be. You're not a product of your family or your situation. You can rise above your situation. And so with all the things that I've dealt with, I just wanted better for myself. And the kids that I work with, it's like everybody has the potential to be better than they are. And that's really what I want to see.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're kind of fed the lie that we just need to accept whatever. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're having if you're making great choices, just accept. But we always can be better. We can rise above. I mean, it's not everybody definitely has issues, as we know, right? And,
oh yeah.
Gosh, I just love that story about your mom. What a little fighter. She protected you.
Yeah, she did. And as an adult, I've learned a lot about my family. I went on 23andMe. I went my whole life. I went on my whole life being I would never know my dad. So there's definitely some identity crisis of not knowing, where, DCYF has this whole, it's better to be placed with, your biological family and stuff like that. So you do have a little bit of that identity crisis. I think I had that a little bit growing up. So I joined 23andMe and Ancestry, and a couple years after joining, I tracked down, a bio family member and
paternal side.
Paternal side.
Whoa.
Yeah, I actually went down and met them, and I don't really have a relationship with them. There's a whole story behind that one. I was born 6 months before an older sister. So I was born, basically he cheated on his wife the first year of marriage. And but what I did find is basically every person that I'm blood related to has had some kind of substance abuse issues. I am the only one, to my knowledge, pretty much, that has not had drug or
Praise
substance
God.
abuse issues.
How?
And, I grew up knowing, doctors, and my mom was really, my mom that raised me was really into telling me, you were born in these circumstances, so make sure that you're really careful. So I never tried it. It wasn't worth it, one time and I could be addicted. And so I just never tried it. It was never worth it to me. So I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never, tried any hard drugs. And so, why succumb to something like that, even at peer pressure?
Good job.
So, I didn't even, drink until my 20s. So it was, and I think that that's an important thing that I was able to overcome.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible, because you are nobody these days. Everybody has tried different things. So that's a big thing to be, I won't say proud of, but truly proud of.
Well, and it's, I'm not, there's a study that I found. There's not a whole lot of research on people that have been born addicted and into adulthood. What does being born addicted to drugs, how does that affect you as an adult? And when I looked into it, research shows that 80% of plus kids that are born addicted end up using drugs before they're an adult. And so it skews a lot of the results of how does that substance use in utero affect you as an adult? Because if they use drugs during childhood, how does that affect? Well, it skews the data. So there's not a whole lot of research, and I didn't even really think about this. What brought this up, I did a training for my team about a year and a half ago, not even a year ago. And I brought some neonatal nurses into my facility to do some training on how drugs are affecting children. And so they did feeding tubes and all these different things on how to do a feeding tube and the gastrointestinal and how all these drugs are affecting them medically. And so I'm listening to this training and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much every system is affected by this in utero drug use. And so afterwards, I meet with the nurse and I give her a little bit of snippet about my story. And she's like, really? She's like, you have no idea how lucky you are. You got your stuff together. And I'm like, well, I don't really have my stuff together, I really don't, I'm a mess, I definitely have my issues.
I almost want to go high five. Me too. You're normal. We have issues. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I got issues, and she's like, no, you are so rare. You have no idea how rare you are. And I'm like, really? Am I that rare? And I just never really researched it. And then I really started looking into it and researching it. There's not really studies on what it's like to be an adult when you were born addicted to drugs. There's just not studies on it. But of course you're affected. And then it made me think, I had an MRI done a couple of years ago. And because one of my half-biological sister has MS. And then two of her kids have MS. So I was like, well, maybe I should get this checked out. And so I had an MRI done, and I have all these white spots on my brain. And they're like, well, it's not indicative of MS, but there's something going on. But we're not really sure what it's from. Like, it's not right for you to have this many white spots, but you didn't have injuries. And so they were really sort of stumped as to why I had all these white spots. And I didn't really put anything together. Okay. So then as I'm reading this research, finds out that babies born addicted to drugs, if you do an MRI after they're born, a high percentage of them have white spots on their brains right after they're born on their MRIs. So it's like, And why is there not more studies done on this?
Absolutely. Gosh, I just had like a chain reaction of thoughts when you were saying that. Yeah, because more studies need to be done because babies in the womb need to be protected. If, parents should not be, that's a hard one.
Well, and you got House Bill 1227 where they're not removing kids unless there's physical abuse. Well, babies are in utero. You are literally physically abusing them. You are causing lifelong physical trauma and abuse that will affect them for the rest of their life. So how is that not physical abuse? And I don't know what the solution is. You can't really lock up a pregnant person, but they're illicitly using illegal drugs. So maybe that is the answer. I don't know.
I know. It
used to be you locked up somebody 20 years for using marijuana.
I know. It's so muddled. It's such a gray area. But just because it's a gray area doesn't mean that we shouldn't confront it and ask hard questions and say, maybe we need to really consider this because we're dealing with children, right? We're not expecting, but one of our really, really good friends is expecting a baby, and we are just chomping at the bit to hold this little person. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl. So every time I think about I would call them a head and a butt, our babies, heads and butts, and just looking at these beautiful angels. And we need to protect them, right? And it is our responsibility as adults that we're gonna have to say hard things, we're gonna have to confront hard things, we're gonna have to ask hard questions to guard the future. Children are the future. Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into House Bill 1227. So you started your company how many years before House Bill 1227 went into place? Actually, you know what? Let's make 2020 COVID our anchor year, okay? Let's talk about before COVID. How many years were you having your transportation company before COVID? Which areas did you serve? Tell me a little bit about that.
So my agency is statewide. So I started my business in Western Washington because that's where I used to live. And so pre-COVID, my team was pretty split, half Western Washington, half Eastern and Central Washington.
And how many team members at that time did you have?
Pre-COVID, I had 72 team members.
All right.
Okay. I was actually, I think, the second or third largest agency in the state pre-COVID. COVID hit. I got hit pretty hard with COVID. I lost the majority of my team in Western Washington and a fair amount in Central and Eastern Washington. I think I ended up reducing to 32 during COVID.
That's a huge hit, yeah.
And most of it in Western Washington, I think I reduced to about 8 people in Western Washington. And I never really regrew in Western Washington. So I think I only have 7 or 8 in Western Washington still. I have spent, because I live in Spokane now, a big part of my focus has been Central and Eastern Washington. So I am, to my knowledge, the largest agency in Central and Eastern Washington. So this side of Snoqualmie Pass.
Well, thank you.
So
we appreciate you being over here.
Yeah, so we service about 40 to 45% of all the families that need our services this side of Snoqualmie Pass.
What's your team look like now? How many people are you employing?
We are about 65 and growing.
Dang.
So we're finally getting close to our pre-COVID numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So earlier we were talking about we got hit with a triple whammy. So we get COVID. We have a huge, fentanyl use uprising of fentanyl use. And then House Bill 1227. I'm curious on your perspective. Okay, so we have COVID, the lockdown happens. What do you see?
Okay, so some observations of mine. So pre-COVID, when I used to, interview and do this work, I used to say most of our kids are neglect. So we're not dealing with some of that hard abuse. Every once in a while we'd have hard abuse cases, but usually we are removing before it gets to that. So when I would sit down and talk about this work, we're removing it neglect. And we're preventing that from happening. So DCYF is there sort of preventing it before it gets really bad.
Can I just pause you real quick? Please tell me, what is neglect? Just so our listeners can be up to speed. Like, what classifies as neglect?
So neglect would be children are removed when at the hospital. So if kids were born addicted, they were automatically removed. If they already had a child in CPS care, they were automatically removed.
So like siblings.
So siblings, yes. If they were getting starved, if they were missing lots of days of school, if they weren't getting taken to doctor's appointments or injuries were happening and they weren't getting those injuries taken care of on a regular basis, hygiene, those kinds of things, like those red flags. Kids were getting removed when a certain number of red flags hit, not necessarily that hard physical abuse.
Okay, so pick up now. So we got that. So now we know what neglect is for our audience. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
So then COVID happens and everything shuts down. Now, most kids are removed because somebody reports it to CPS, intake. They call intake. I'm observing something. I'm concerned about something. And then CPS does an investigation. They go out and they make a determination. And sometimes one allegation is enough to remove the kids, but usually it's a couple allegations and then they decide to remove kids. Well, when we went into lockdown, these kids are not being exposed to those people that report. So teachers, coaches, church.
Right.
So there's nobody reporting these injuries. So, we reduced visitation. We reduced kids coming into care. It just fell off. Now, as a provider, and people within our, that provided these services were scared because we knew that these kids were getting abused. I mean, I was a mom. I was having to homeschool my kids. It was stressful for me. And I like to think of myself as a well-functioning mom. But for a parent that has all these other stressors, that's how am I paying my bills? Am I going to lose my house? Maybe in a domestic violent relationship that's having substance abuse issues, them being stuck with their kids and learning how to parent, like those stressors. I mean, abuse, we knew was happening, but nobody was able to report and save these kids. So during COVID, I was, and many providers were really scared for these kids. Well, then COVID, slowly, but then they passed House Bill 1227, 2021?
Right on the heels of
right
COVID.
on the heels of COVID.
Yeah.
So you never really, so now all of a sudden kids are not being removed for neglect. They're only being removed for immediate physical harm. So what does that look like? You got a drug-using parent and a drug-affected baby going home with a drug-using parent. Is that common sense? I mean, not common sense.
No.
I mean, it took me 6 weeks, apparently, in the hospital to detox with the proper care. Now we have a governor that's shutting down clinics that specialize in treating these kids, so they don't have a place to go to get the proper treatment after they're born. They're just going home with these parents. And there's a lot of things that come, the uncontrollable crying, the
Shaking.
digestive needs, and then they're using, and the stress. So what are we seeing now? Now, 7 months later, 6 months later, as a provider, I'm seeing infants with broken bones, shaken baby syndrome. And then you have the fentanyl crisis on it. So that coincides with the last 4 years. Pre-COVID, we saw fentanyl, but it was mostly, I'm sorry to say, but meth. God, I'd take meth all day, every day over fentanyl. I mean, it's sorry to say, but like fentanyl is a whole new ball game.
It is.
And, with meth, you could see some of the effects with children, but with fentanyl, it's these kids that are coming into play. It's the side effects, the special needs of the kids being born with fentanyl. It's the the ability for parents to parent under fentanyl, nodding off, not falling asleep, not being able to care. Gosh, I think of a story, and it was when I observed in the news, but I knew of it because of the network. It was, a dad was playing video games for 12 hours and watching a kid, and the kid was upstairs. It was, 18 months or 2 years old, and the dresser fell on him, and he died. And the dad was high and was playing video games for 12 hours straight, and just didn't, and they could prove that based off of the video game and the live feed. So he was high off fentanyl while this kid had a dresser fall on him and died. And it's just like, what kind of decisions is somebody under the influence able to make? They can't care for themselves. How are they going to care for these kids? And that's what's happening.
And under 4 years old, these are the most vulnerable children. Mm-hmm. The most vulnerable children. They need constant supervision.
Oh, yeah.
Constant supervision. I have a baby again, 15 months old, and everything is gated, right? He needs constant supervision because they don't know. And this is the age they explore, and they're sensory and put stuff in your mouth, and it's discovery and their brain development. We had a mom who had a little nephew, and the birth parent put fentanyl in a lipstick case. The little girl, lipstick, opens it up. The little baby gets into it. Now we're being Narcaned and life support, So, okay. I know. You and I
let's back up a little bit, right?
Yes,
so
please.
I remember, I got my 2-year degree when I did Running Start when I was in high school, and then I sort of took a break from school. And then I went back to school in my 30s after I was already in this industry. And one of the classes I took was child abuse and neglect. And one of the things that I took away from that class was that the most important parts of our development is the first year of life, right? That's where we learn attachment, security, all of this stuff. And basically what came from this class is if you don't get your needs met the first year of life, you're basically messed up for the rest of your life. There's really nothing you can do because everything that you need to function, you learn that first year of life. When your security, your basic needs, right? So these brand new babies are going home with these drug using parents that are using, and they're passing out. And these babies are basically spending their entire lives, or a big portion of their lives, in the cribs. Are they getting their needs met? And you can't take that back. You can't fix that. It's proven. I mean, I went to school 12 years ago, and it was proven, 25 years ago that there's no fixing that. And yet, instead of helping these kids, we're perpetuating the problem. We're creating a whole nother generation that is broken. It's a cyclical cycle and perpetuating the problem.
Okay, so I hate saying this because I hate saying, we're talking about numbers and money. Okay, but let's just go there.
Yeah.
So now we're not even stepping in to remove children, to reduce these adverse childhood experiences, right? To create healthy human beings, giving parents a time out to get their stuff together, giving these kids a chance to not only live, but to develop some healthy activities, just health in general, right? Okay, so let's go financially. We, as of now, we don't have enough space in jails, juvenile justice, all these things, because we know that when these issues are not taken care of and kids aren't developing healthily, that they're going to be in the juvenile justice system. They're going to be in jail. We have a homelessness crisis on our hands in Washington. I mean, here, I don't live in Yakima, but man, driving to our studio, I go by a whole street of homelessness. Even in my little town, we have homelessness. We have a serious problem of homelessness. Now, we're creating a whole new generation, because we also know that kids who don't get past a third grade education, the likelihood of just success, and when I say success in life, I'm not talking about having a nice car, a nice house, the traditional American dream. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about being a healthy person that can be in a relationship, that can love and be loved, because those are things that are learned, and then raise the next generation. So we have a cycle, like you said, and until we say, stop the cycle, we need to stop this, we need to try again. I mean, you are a prime example. The cycle stopped. You stopped the cycle. Well, your mother, I'm going to say adoptive mother, I know she is your mother. She stopped the cycle. And you stopped the cycle with your kids.
Yep.
I mean, Lord willing, I'm trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to stop the cycle. But we have to say, enough's enough. We need to separate the problem, right? The addiction from the human. And we need to say, enough's enough. We have to stop and give these kids a fighting chance.
Yep.
You were given a fighting chance. Look at you.
Yep.
Good job.
Thank you.
I pray that my kids that they make good choices like you did and, change things. Okay, keep going. That was my soapbox. Sorry about that.
So, no, like, I'm right there. Like, I always tell myself, being a mom is hard. Being a parent is super hard.
Yeah,
you don't get they have all these books, but really at the end of the day, it's really hard. But I always tell myself, my job is to raise a contributing member of society.
Amen.
If I can raise a contributing member of society that's not a leech on society, I have succeeded. What that looks like, whether they're a school teacher or they are a investor and makes millions of dollars, I don't care.
I would say
need to be a
if they clean McDonald's at night.
I don't care.
Praise the Lord. That's what we want.
They are contributing to society and not taking from society. That is my goal. Now, what does it take to be that? You have to have consequences for actions. And we don't have that. I mean, even I'm not a foster parent, but I see, like, you have kids that are change and change and change. On my way here, I was listening to one of your previous interviews where somebody said, you take a cell phone away from a kid and they just call the social worker and says, oh, I don't like this foster parent. And then they just switch the foster parent. You see that all the time. That's not teaching them consequences for actions. When they're an adult, they mess up, they go to jail. You have to teach that in childhood.
Oh, yeah.
There are consequences for actions. Totally going political, but it's like we're not tough on crime. Jail is not meant to be watching TV and getting meals. And, in our state, they passed legislation last where they don't even have to do work
Based, yeah, I know.
They don't have to do work. I don't even know what it's called, but
don't worry, I'm with you. I'm like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's a consequence. You have to work.
Because that's considered slave labor. No, it's not.
No.
You need to learn to be a contributing member of society. You go work. You're in jail. Earn your keep. Taxpayers are paying for you to sit in jail. Earn your keep while you're in jail.
Well, now they don't even put them in jail. I mean, I was Christmas shopping, and I was at I think TJ Maxx or something, and I literally watched a gentleman with a cart full of stuff leave, and the alarms go off, and I said, excuse me, that man just robbed you. She goes, we can't do anything about it. I said, what do you mean? She goes, we just have a camera, and then we won't let them in the store again. There's no consequence?
No.
Washington State, you've lost your mind.
Oh, gosh. So have you been to California recently?
No, I don't even want to.
So I went to go meet my birth sibling
your family,
in California
your
last year.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this has to do with him not wanting to talk to me after that. But, I got political while I was down there. But I was like, why is everything locked up? Everything was locked up in California. Everything. Tweezers was locked up. You had to ask somebody to get basic essentials. And I was like, what's up with this? And they're like, well, the theft is so bad. And it's like they won't even... If it's under $1,000, they just...
That's what it is, under $1,000.
And I'm just like, are you kidding me? It's gotten that bad? But Washington State is right behind that. It's...
Oh, I'd say...
When did that get okay? Was that something our forefathers wanted? I mean, not to say that we should go back to chopping your hand off if you steal, but, there needs to be consequences for actions. And what are we teaching our kids and our next generation? If there's no consequences, then what's the point of following the rules?
Honestly, when you said thinking about the next generation, I mean, I'd have to say that's why we're here. Fostering change, that's why I'm coming back.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm trying to interview and get this message out of craziness, because I'm terrified of what's coming.
I'm very scared.
I'm terrified of what's coming.
Yeah.
If we don't get a grip on things, which getting a grip on things, maybe 20 years but that's if we're going in a positive direction, making change. It could take 20 years.
Yeah.
But we have to start somewhere, because I'm terrified on what's coming. And I'm terrified on these children that are left with their parents and the drugs. And
certainly children are dying. I don't care what the money costs. And let's go back to what you said about the financial piece of it. Okay, in our work, we do visitation, and a judge orders, 3 by 3, 3 visits a week, 3 hours each, right?
3 by 3.
And it's court ordered. Mm-hmm. Well, if the parent doesn't show up, we still, get some. We don't get nearly as much compensation, but we still get some kind of compensation. But we still have to provide these visits because these parents have a right. Well, I'm sorry. You want to save money? Stop giving these parents chance after chance. It's traumatic for the children because they show up, and then these parents don't show up, and it makes them feel awful. Like, why doesn't my mom love me? Why doesn't my mom show up? And then you're dealing with a crying baby in the background, and trying
as the transporter, right?
As a transporter,
yeah, screaming.
And it hits their self-esteem, and then we just have to do it again because the parents have a right to visitation. Why are these judges not saying, you've missed 15 visits, you're going down to 1 visit a week. If you show up for 1 visit a week, after 30 days, you can get a second visit. Hey, let's save money there. You know what I mean? You want to look at ways of saving money.
Drop the mic, girl, yes.
You want to talk about money? Okay, let's save kids' lives so then you're not getting hit with lawsuits later for millions of dollars for DCYF not doing their job to begin with, or legislation not doing their job. Pay it on the upfront so you don't have to pay it on the back end. There's definitely ways to adjust the budget to make it work. But they're just not choosing to do that.
I've been listening to you, and I'm like, common sense, common sense, common sense. And our legislators, common sense. We want common sense back.
But it's, I've worked with DCYF for many, many years, and I think that the majority of people on the front line, social workers, really want to make a difference.
Oh, yes, they
do.
They do.
The administration and the frontline workers are not on the same page. And the feedback, stakeholders, I don't know how many times we've given advice and suggestions, and probably 12 years I've been like, why aren't we meeting on a regular basis where you get foster parents, CASAs, judges, all of these, and have stakeholder meetings to talk about how to improve the system, because nobody meets together. Everybody meets separately. This is, and none of that feedback's taken together to improve. So like foster parents don't understand how social work or how visit supervisors are restricted, or Combined In-Home doesn't understand how visit supervisors work. And so nobody really understands each other's roles. Even social workers don't understand our contract as visit supervisors. So nobody really understands each other's roles. And when you don't understand each other's roles, it's hard not only to work together, but it's also easy to throw the other people under the bus. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't get visitation covered because the visit supervising agency won't pick it up. Well, no, we won't pick it up because it's a safety concern. Like, you're putting our safety in jeopardy. It's a liability issue. We can't do visits because you're putting our safety in jeopardy.
You're putting your employee,
for
you,
members.
You're like, I can't touch this because this will put my team in danger.
Yep.
But we can leave a kid in this situation.
Yes.
So a company refuses to take.
Or the social worker even refuses to go out to the state workers will refuse to go out to these homes.
Because they feel like their life is in danger.
Because they feel like their life is in danger, but then they send us into these homes.
Well, but the ultimate thing is we're leaving kids in these homes. Whew. Okay.
Yeah.
I know, it makes no sense. Speaking of like the stakeholders and DCYF, they're having an oversight meeting on Tuesday, one of those days.
Yeah.
And they just...
Monday.
Is it Monday? I was like, it's somewhere. And we've been asking for representation. The people that they just put out representing us, I'm like, they don't want to hear from the stakeholders. They want to hear what they want to hear. One of the people on there, we've had to block. There's been numerous foster parent sites that have had to block this person because of the slander and the aggression, but yet they have that person there representing foster parents. We have another person on there that they just want an echo chamber. They want to hear themselves, and they just want to hear it back. They just want like, good job, you're doing great. No, you need to hear from the people that don't agree with you, because that's how you get the full picture. Mm-hmm. It's good to have people not agree with you. You need to hear it.
Yeah, you need that feedback to fix the system.
You need to.
And the people on the front line.
Yeah. Can we get to, I want to know how your team's doing mental health-wise when it comes to these cases, because that was something I didn't really consider, just because my focus, I'm always like children. But we had a wonderful woman that is a provider and comes in and works with these parents. And she said something, and I thought I was going to throw up when she said it, because it was like, I've never thought about that. Like, you have employees that you have to send into these situations that are scary for them. Can you tell me about that? Like, how are they feeling? I mean, with fentanyl and having to stand in the front line and see, like, be in the front row to watching what's happening and not be able to do anything about it.
So my model is a little different. So I have a subcontractor model,
Okay.
not an employee-based model. And I chose that model because I want the people on my team to have a choice. I don't necessarily want them to take on cases that they're completely uncomfortable with. So they do have somewhat of a choice. So when referrals come in, they come across, my desk and my referral team's desk. And then we decide from those referrals which go out to the team. So some of those referrals I won't even send out to my team because they're too risky.
Would you mind, what would be considered too risky in your eyes?
So one of the cases that's been floating around for a while is a teenager is using fentanyl themselves and they want us to transport in a vehicle. And so to me, that's a risk, because if they're actively using, we're going to transport them in our own personal vehicle, in a vehicle that we are using for other kids. So we have a drug-using person in our vehicle that may be unpredictable, violent, may overdose in our back seat. And then if they have drug paraphernalia that they leave in the car, a child that comes next into the car may be exposed to that. So that's too risky to me. We've had, parents that have been, founded guilty on murder charges, and currently under investigation for rape and murder. We have.
Yeah, that sounds too risky to me.
Yeah, and not to say we've done cases where they're actually my first case. I'll tell you about my first case. One of my 6 months into this job, I'm mid-20s, and, the person that got me into this was a social worker, a good friend of mine. And so it happened to be her case. And I'm doing visits, and a couple months into it, I'm like, I sort of like this mom. We're not supposed to have an opinion, but we do form an opinion. We're human. Mm-hmm. She's one of these real parents that don't fake it, and you feel like this is what it would be like if this child went home. And I'm dropping off one day, and the caregiver is a relative placement and shares with me that the mom's under investigation for murder. Oh. And I'm like, what? And I leave, and I call my social worker, and I'm like, why didn't you tell me this? And they're like, well, would that have skewed your perspective? And I'm like, yeah, I think it would have. And so to me, doing this job, I don't necessarily want to know the details. And so I have people on my team that do Google the families, because a lot of the families that we work with are in the news. And then I have, people that don't Google it. And so we will be working with a family and find out later that we are working with families that have committed violent crimes and stuff like that. But again, it comes back to my team having that subcontractor option and being able to choose the cases that they want.
That they feel comfortable.
That they feel comfortable with. But it's scary that the social workers don't tell us this. We don't know when we're picking up these cases. Like, we can do our own investigation, but sometimes we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. We don't know what we're walking into. And I think that sometimes that's the scariest perspective, because years ago, it was a lot different. Now we're dealing with violent parents that are also using hardcore drugs like fentanyl. We're going into parents' home that have weapons. So you combine that, using fentanyl, may have weapons in the home, and has previous convictions of murder or gang violence. And sometimes that's what we're walking into. And we may or may not even know that when we're walking into it. That's the scary part.
Before, would these people be locked up? Or is this like a new thing? Or
we're seeing it more, so that's more apparent, because remember, kids used to get removed before some of this stuff happened. Mm-hmm. So when I talked about pre-COVID, you'd see those kids removed before it got really bad situations. But before, those visits would be in a graduated process. All visits would start in an office, a DCYF office, where they had a security guard. Years ago, if a family was there was a security situation that was bad enough, they would actually hire a separate security guard on that visit to stay with you during that supervised visit. That's what they used to do on the West Side. And they got away from that. They don't do that anymore.
This isn't the case anymore.
And some of those hard cases stayed in-house. They didn't contract those out. So social workers were required to do those visits. Now, all of those visits get assigned out, and they don't give any special support as far as security guards or anything like that on those cases. So it's completely been transitioned to the provider to provide those services. So in Eastern and Central Washington, there's what's called a network administrator. Mm-hmm. So there's a middleman between DCYF and us. Their contract states that they have to accept every referral. Now, they don't provide services, they just assign those services, but they are required to accept every single referral. So it's wait a second, DCYF hands out these cases that are unsafe, and then we're expected to provide those services, and if we don't, then we're not meeting our contractual requirements because we sign a contract that says that we will accept a certain number of cases. Yeah. But it's this catch-22 because we have to say no when it comes to the safety of some of these situations. So that graduated process has completely gone away. So it used to be you did visits in the office, and they did well in the office, then you moved out into the community if they did well in the community, and if and only if they had a home, then the social worker would go out and do a health and safety check in the home, confirm that the home was safe, and then you would do visits in the home. Now, I'm getting court orders for visits. The kids have been removed 2 weeks ago, and we're going straight to visits in the home. And for me, I don't allow that. We're not doing visits straight in the home. They have to, and so I, as a provider, have had to push back and say, I'm not willing to do that unless these conditions are met. And sometimes they accept it, and sometimes they take it from me and give it to another provider.
The layers of the law not protecting its constituents, right? It's not protecting the people of Washington. Mm-mm. I mean, and my eyes are being opened up on the layers of this law, how many people it's not protecting, but ultimately, if we're not allowing professionals, or professionals don't feel safe into these situations, but yet it's okay to leave a child there.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the layers, so let's put blame where blame is, right? So as far as these difficult cases being handled, mm-hmm. Which should be handed to a provider and which shouldn't, that's a DCYF issue. DCYF has the authority to say which ones should be handed to providers and which shouldn't, and which should receive security guards. So they have the authority, DCYF, to make those decisions.
Do they still have that to say, hey, we need a security guard? Do they still?
Yeah, DCYF can.
They still can do that.
DCYF can, but they, to my knowledge, choose not to because they're not taking advantage of that.
Okay.
Now, the judicial system is the one that says visits have to be in the home. They have to provide 3 visits a week, no matter what. There's issues with the judicial system. So you have to understand what DCYF has control of and what the judicial system has control of.
That's really good information.
Yeah.
So if you were to, right now, you had your magic wand, you could go in and change things. Mm-hmm. What would you change?
I would start with legislation to change House Bill 1227, mm-hmm. and then I would change the judges. That needs to be fixed first, then go to DCYF. Because I think if the laws were changed and the judicial system changed, then DCYF could at least have a chance to do their job. And then after they had a chance to do their job, then you could reassess and make adjustments from there.
So have you had a chance to look at House Bill 1227?
I don't have it memorized, but I understand the gist of it.
Right,
yes.
You understand the gist of it. Okay, so there's a lot of people right now that are saying, repeal it, repeal it, repeal it. I say we haven't given it a shot. We should probably just change it, right? But do you think we should repeal it?
I'm supportive of repealing it.
Okay,
but
that's okay.
I know that the chances of repealing it are slim.
All right.
So let's work with what we got.
Okay, so what we got? What's your perspective on what we should be changing in it?
We need to change the definition of what is immediate physical danger, and immediate physical danger is substance uses in the house, so fentanyl in the house. And if the child is born addicted, they need to be removed. Those are my 2 primary pieces. Especially, I
was going to say, you have the authority, your life story, you have the authority to say that, and we need it.
It's important for me. It's important. It's close to my heart. It is so important. The special needs of children born addicted. I was on the way here, and a good friend of mine, she runs another visitation agency, and she's a foster parent, and has adopted 4 kids within the system. And she had the perfect story. She got a brand new baby from the hospital. called up and said, hey, born clean, perfect scenario. Mom abandoned her at the hospital.
Perfect scenario for an adoptive
For
parent.
an adoptive
Somebody
parent,
who
like,
wants to adopt.
yes.
This is like,
This
got
is
it.
perfect.
Okay, got
As
it.
a foster parent, you could probably emphasize, hey, baby was born clean, mom abandoned baby, she's adopted 11 months later. For a foster parent, not being a foster parent, I'm assuming like that's like best case scenario.
If you want to adopt,
if you want to
absolutely,
adopt,
yes.
right? And you got this big gorgeous baby. Well, now that baby is 15 years old, and while she was born clean, there was a lot of substances used throughout the pregnancy, and so she's struggling with all kinds of learning disabilities, and she's super tiny, and emotional regulation and brain development, and her like a whole list of things that my friend is telling me on the way here, and how rough her summer was, and she's like, you think you can parent these kids the same way, and you can't, and you just don't know, and 15 years later, this child was doted on and loved, but you can't change the fact that that baby was exposed in utero and has lifelong effects, and we're not even studying it, and it infuriates me because this is happening all over the United States, but in Washington, so much worse. This is physical abuse. This is, you are setting these kids up for lifelong struggles and entering a world. So my mom ended up using drugs.
Okay, please say, so this is the mom that adopted you.
This is my mom that adopted me.
Okay.
She ended up using drugs later in life. I was like, Mom, you made it to your mid-40s, you preached my whole childhood against this. Like, what happened? And, she had an injury and, took some painkillers and
was addicted.
And, she ran out of painkillers, and she said, that's why I know, street drugs. And I couldn't stand the pain. It was the worst pain when it came to getting off the drugs, the worst pain I've ever experienced. I never want to experience that again. Think about that. As an adult who's given birth to kids.
And this is the worst pain.
The worst
pain. Off of drugs.
So much so that she would turn to illegal drugs to avoid this pain. These babies are being born in this world with that kind of pain.
That's their first
experience in this world.
Is pain.
Is that kind of pain. And that's just okay. How is that okay? I think that's what I struggle with the most. And it's just no big deal. We just keep physical harm. How is that not physical harm? The worst possible pain my mom has ever experienced. And that's why, and she's clean and she got over it, and it's been a road for recovery, but the worst possible pain, and that's what these babies are being born into. And it's just okay.
Yeah. What I love the most is that you have the authority to say this. And I love that. That is something that, we can say it, but
That's how Christina, because I shared
authority.
on an oversight committee, and I shared my story on one of the oversight board meetings, and then Christina tracked me down afterwards. So,
as I'm hearing you speak so passionately about these babies born drug addicted, is that you have the authority to speak on this. I can say it till I'm blue in the face. Our group can say it till we're blue in the face. You have the authority. You've lived it. Mm-hmm. You've lived it. So backing up to the judicial side of things, with everything you said, what would you say to the judicial system right now?
Your job is to protect the kids. The parents don't come first. Kids come first. It is our job as human beings and as adults to protect the most vulnerable members of our society, and that is the children. Mm-hmm. And the parents are adults, and while they may need support and they may be able to successfully deal with the things in their lives, and I am all for second chances. I wouldn't be in the industry that I'm in without believing in second chances. But we have to put children first, because nobody has a voice they don't have a voice for themselves. And so somebody else has to speak for them. And it doesn't have to be, this study of like being with your biological family and stuff like that. That is not always the best case scenario. Stability and love and emotional support, and not financial. I mean, I grew up poor. We had, what bills are we going to pay? And my mom was on food stamps.
Yes.
It was, yeah.
But that's not what makes
about money.
No, it's not.
And sometimes being poor is what gives you the drive and motivation to be a hard worker, because it certainly made me be a hard worker. But that love and that security and that safeness, and that's what these kids need. And that judge making a decision, I mean, most of the time these kids aren't in the courtroom. So having that child in the courtroom and you're choosing the parent over the kid, that's a moral decision. And when these kids die and they have these injuries and these judges just get off, I have issues with it. And I know it's like legislation and it's easy to just make a decision without facing the consequences, but they need to face the consequences. They are making life-altering decisions, and House Bill 1227 has had life-altering decisions. There are babies and children alive that are no longer alive because of this legislation and because of these judges making these decisions, where DCYF has said these kids should not go home and the judge overrules them. And I get that there's these politics of, DCYF has these issues and social workers have these issues, just like foster parents. Foster parents are oftentimes not listened to and not respected. We need to get past all of that and come together and come to some agreements. And the number one agreement is kids come first, period. We need to have more services for kids than we do parents. These parents get all these services and kids get hardly any. Every kid in foster care needs some kind of therapy. I'm sorry, but that's just the bottom line. And you want to talk about financial? You're investing on the front end to save on the back end. You're investing now so they don't end up in prison. They don't end up on Section 8 housing. They don't end up on this. Investing now is going to save the money later.
Yeah. I love, as a foster parent, and I was raised with foster kids, one thing that really is concerning for me, too, is we need to focus on the stability of that child in foster care, right? Like when there's an allegation coming from somebody who is an addict, who's had a history of X, Y, and Z, criminal, everything, and the child comes to a visit with a tiny little bruise, right? And all of a sudden they remove the kid because the parents make an accusation. It's like we have to focus on stability, because we know that moving is not okay.
Well, I, as a provider, have to document every single injury, period, that comes in. I have to write a UIR on every injury, and then I have to notify the social worker of every injury that comes in, not only to protect myself, but so many of those injuries result in an investigation into the foster parent. And then the foster parent is upset, but it's like the system is sort of broken. It's, I, as a parent, I know that, kids are clumsy and fall and hurt, but it's like a full-fledged investigation. And it's, not to say that, let me back up a bit. Every group of people, there are a few bad apples. Let's recognize that. The police department, the fire department, social workers, foster parents, visitation providers. There's a few bad apples in every group. Let's own that. But the vast majority of people in service are there because they have a heart for it. And everybody is judged based off of the few bad apples. And that's not right. It is so hard to be a social worker. It is so hard to be a foster parent. It is hard to be a police officer. Most people do not do that because it is so difficult. We need to recognize that, and we need to respect that. And so then when you have drug-using parents or, criminal records come in and make accusations, we need to recognize that these other people don't have to be foster parents, don't have to be police officers, don't have to be social workers. Does what they have to say not matter? Like, this is more important than the other?
Like, let's weigh it out.
Let's weigh it out. Like, who's more reputable? But that's not what happens. You, as a foster parent, the accusations go, sometimes those kids are ripped out of your home while you're being investigated. And then even if, I was reading on a blog the other day, like there was a couple different foster parents that were chiming in that they had an accusation made against them and then the kids were removed and that they were going to court and they were like, what are my chances of getting these kids placed back in their home? And they're like, slim to none.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the heck? Somebody can make an accusation. These kids have been in home for a year and a half, stability, loving, and then they don't get placed when that accusation is proved. Who loses in that situation?
The
really?
child.
The child.
But,
Or, like, you take a child home from the hospital. And again, I'm not a foster parent, but I can only imagine why I'm not a foster parent, because I wanted to be a foster parent. And when I hear these stories, I don't have it in me. I would probably shut down because I couldn't cope with it. Mm-hmm. But these stories are just heartbreaking, and you wonder, really, is this in the best interest of the child? You know, you take a baby home from the hospital, and you raise it for 2 years, 3 years. Mom's in and out of its life, you know, because of, you know, in and out of foster, some visitation here, there, sporadic. And then all of a sudden, mom gets clean for 3 weeks or 2 months.
Yeah.
And then mom gets that child back. And sometimes that foster parent isn't even notified. I, as a provider, has picked up a child knowing that it's the last visit, and the foster parent has no clue.
That happens
Can
a
you
lot.
imagine that foster parent, the children in that home, and then that child? Because they don't know.
They believe.
That's their mom.
Yes.
And they might have 2 mommies. You know, the mom that they see on visitation and the mom. But that's the. They don't know the difference. They're too young to know the difference. And you just rip them out of the home? Is that really what's in the best interest of the kids? That's happening all the time in our state. And our judges are ordering it left and right.
In this state, we treat animals
better than our kids.
Than we treat children.
Mm-hmm. Abusing an animal has stricter.
Oh, it does. You can get your animal removed, but yet we'll remove an animal, but we'll leave a child.
Yep.
What is
wrong with our system?
But each one of us need to look at ourselves because we're allowing it.
Yeah. And we keep voting for
the same things.
The same things.
And we're voting for these people to come in that are making these decisions. And I mean, right now, in Ellensburg, I'm working with my city council because they're fighting the city council because they're pouring money into adults making decisions, but yet we're neglecting kids. And this is just on a community level. Mm-hmm. We're neglecting kids and not thinking about childhood. Childhood is beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. Think about parks and all these things are public, swim pools, like all these things that make your childhood. And we, as a society, we need to stop being selfish and thinking of ourselves. Mm-hmm. We are so selfish as a society. Children are not inconveniences. Children are blessings. They are our future. Mm-hmm. God loves children. We need to turn our heart towards his heart, which is the children.
Yeah.
We need legislators to be changing. And unfortunately, it's been our left-wing legislators that have been pushing this nonsense because they're believing and hearing people that are speaking race politics, and we need to get away from race and everything. We all bleed the same.
Yep.
We need to get down to the innocence of babies, and we all bleed the same, and we all deserve a fighting chance.
Yep. House Bill 1227 came from DEI, and basically kids being removed. They didn't want kids removed. At least my understanding is that they didn't want kids of color to be removed more than others. And so now, instead of them being removed, we just have them dying at a higher rate. And that just doesn't make sense.
That's not loving.
That's not loving.
That's not protecting
helping.
That's not protecting the population of color.
We keep putting Band-Aids on situations and not fixing the situation. And I have, I have a very diverse group of friends, and the most of us are middle ground. We're not far right, we're not far left. We actually agree on a lot of things. It's just these things that are in the media, like immigration and pro-choice and pro-life, that they focus on. And so that's what people vote on, is those high emotional things. But then if you look at the actual policies that are put into place, it's like, wait a second. Like, these are actually like policies that really have lasting effects. And And so it's like I've been telling, a lot of my like liberal friends, it's like you either need to change your vote or you need to seriously start talking to your legislators and your representatives and say, this is what I believe in. Because we can't do it in Washington State. We can't do it without the left. They have to make some adjustments. The constituents of the left have to make a stand and say, kids are important to us, and they have to address it with their party. And they have to be educated in order to do that. So, my goal has been to share as much as I can. Everybody I talk to, I try and bring it up. I mean, I was getting my hair done the other day, and I was talking to my stylist about it.
Good for
have you heard about 1227? Everybody I talk to, have you heard about this? And I randomly spark up conversations, and everybody's like, no. And I tell them about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. So, that's the difference I'm trying to make, is educating and networking so people can be made aware of it. But no matter what side you vote, you have to educate and spread the word, and we have to seek change. And that's what I ask. If you vote for, the Democratic side, look at if that's truly what you believe in and look at the facts. And if you still want to vote that way, you really need to reach out to your representatives and say, I need you to change.
Yeah, you need to represent us better.
You need to represent us better because this isn't what I believe in.
Yeah, represent us accurately. My husband's whole side, they're all Democrats, and I love them, and they are such great people. They are wonderful. But I really believe that their legislators are not representing them well, because they're bought into these crazy left ideologies, which is, DEI, which I love diversity, inclusion. These are beautiful things. But on the equity level, I'm having a real hard issue with it, seeing how it's playing out, because now we're saying that we as a people can't say that there are some groups of people, or not people, but just areas. There are some areas that maybe children should not be growing up in. These are dangerous. These are dangerous areas. The chances of this child surviving and living through this, their odds of dying are very high.
Yeah.
Right? This doesn't have to do with, in Yakima, I was looking, we have different populations here. We have more people of color, throughout our state. And this is not a color, or in our case, lack of color issue. This is a humanity issue, right? This is humanity, and children cannot be left in these situations. I don't care what color or lack of color you are. These situations, drugs, right? They don't make anybody think clear. These are lines that need to be drawn for every culture, every creed, everything. There's lines.
So some of the things, earlier we were talking about some of the solutions. So let's throw some ideas out there. I have some ideas, right?
I want to hear your ideas.
I could throw out some things. So there's all kinds of things that you could do to help this situation, right? So I'm going to throw out quite a few ideas, and hopefully I can pull it all together for you. So something I read a couple months ago was, in our state, we have, between state funding and donated funding and all that kind of thing, if you look at the numbers of homeless people, it was something I pulled up on one of our Republican legislators or whatever. They posted the article and they said, it's hard to find this article. But basically $110,000 a year per homeless person is what has been put into homeless housing.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that. $110,000.
A person.
Per person. That's a lot of money. Per year. This is what this study said. I'm like, where's all that money going?
Where's it going?
It's going to the administrators and the big groups and all this stuff. So it's okay, there's a lot of waste there. So money is not the issue. We keep throwing money at the homeless situation, right? Okay, so that's really
not working.
So I don't necessarily know how to fix the homeless issue, but what we're doing is not working. So insanity is literally doing the same thing over and over again.
And getting the same result.
Yeah. So that's not working. Don't necessarily know how to fix that, but what we're doing is not working, right? But then you look at the Trump administration is putting in the whole cap 2 years on Section 8 housing. A lot of people are having issues with that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and there's a big portion of my family grew up on Section 8 housing. I had an aunt that had 12 kids and literally lived on Section 8 housing her entire life. Just kept popping out kids and living off the state. That was my family. So Section 8 housing is an abuse issue. It is a generational issue. So what does that look like? You're going to have, a lot of people being like, well, you're taking from the people that need it. And that, it's sort of like the food stamps issue. You're taking away from the people. There is serious abuse, and we see it every day in our industry. Abuse within the food stamps, the TANF, the Section 8 housing. What does that do? That's actually taking from people that need it. So if you reduce the people that are on, say, Section 8 housing for the rest of their lives, 20 years, 30 years, and you cap it at 2 years, that means more people that need those services have access to those services. So these parents that actually want to get their lives together, that need that step up, that are living in homeless encampments right now, that their life is so miserable that they can't get clean, and they don't have safe housing, and they're housing their kids in tents, and they're shooting up and doing drugs in tents with their kids, they could have 2 years of housing. That's what removing Section 8 housing from people that have been on a lifetime would give access to these families so they could have housing. A new mom that is trying to get clean can get housing, because there's a serious lack of housing. So we want to deal with the homeless, and we keep throwing money at the homeless, but we're not addressing the housing situation with parents that are having babies. So that's one way that we can support families, but that's not happening. So it's just, I don't know if I pulled that together really well.
No,
but,
I think you pulled that together great, because I understood that, because
Yeah.
I was wondering where you were going with it, because I'm thinking, oh, yikes, that's going to be scary. But the way you presented it was, wow, this gives an opportunity for this.
But when you look politically, they're like, you're reducing services here, you're reducing services here, but it's reducing for services that are abusing the situation, so more people have access to it. So that mom that, is living on the streets, that, it's just borderline of having her kid removed. Hey, here's a 2-year voucher for housing. This is what you need to keep it. Food stamps, 20 hours of work. Like, we can have a better system. But we have to take from those that are taking advantage. You know what I mean? We have to stop investing in these homeless shelters with $110,000 a year that's not working, and at some point in time say sorry, and maybe jail or mental institutes, which is what Trump wants to put into place. And I know that sounds harsh, but what we're doing isn't work. And most of the people that are using have some kind of mental health issues. And guess what? We're raising a whole nother generation that, like I said, going back to the study, 80% of people that are born addicted end up using drugs. So we're raising a whole nother generation. So at what point in time, and this sounds harsh, but do we lead them to the water, they don't drink the water, okay, we need to move on, and we need to start helping the younger generation. But we're not even looking at the younger generation.
No, we're just trying to deal with the problem right now.
Yeah.
When you were saying this, the word steward is coming up in my mind. Like, we need to be better stewards. We're given these opportunities, we're given these finances. And yeah, what I didn't know that Trump was doing that. And when it first hit me, I was like, well, that's harsh. Like, that doesn't make sense. You explained it very well. And like you said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and getting the same results, but keep doing it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we might need to take a radical approach and say, this isn't working. And yeah, this sounds kind of radical, what he's proposing, but it might work, right?
Yeah.
Like, it sounds radical, but the fact is we're banging our heads against a wall, and then we're throwing money at it and continuing to do it. That's insanity. You're right. So we may need to try something different,
Yeah.
Let's maybe, this is a crazy thought, maybe support the guy that the popularity vote elected, right? He's elected. Let's give him a shot.
Yeah.
Like, support him and see. Because so far, I have been, let me just say, I was very, very nervous. I'm loving the results. I am loving the results. There's a lot of that gray area where I'm like, but you know what? I'm feeling safer.
Yeah.
And and for mental health, we need it. And I don't know what the answer is on that, and getting people in play to, start bringing services. I don't have the answer, but I know who I'm going to put my focus on, and it's the children.
Yeah.
Because if, like you said, if we can get them on the front end, then maybe, because we had a guest speaker, and he said that by the time he was a director of Union Gospel Mission, and he said by the time that people were homeless and he got them, they were just, really, he's like, it's an adult orphanage. Like, these are the children. So let's start at the children and give them a fighting chance. And so they are not ending up, right? Allow them to have a healthy parent that's going to fight for them. Now, if it's their biological parent, that's what we want. We want, if it can be their biological parent to be healthy and fight for their kid, like, that's what we want. But if that parent can't get to a spot where they can put themselves down and think about their kid and their kid's best interest, then we need to find somebody who can.
Well, and I've listened to a lot of parent panels. So parent panels are like parents that have gone through and gotten their kids back. And some of the parents have said, it took getting my kids taken away to hit rock bottom before I changed. And now we're not taking the kids away. So are we doing these parents a disservice by not removing these kids?
It's not loving.
It's not loving them. It's not saying that if they don't get those kids removed, like, you know, I've never, you know, I haven't had a drug issue, but having spoken and you know, you have to hit rock bottom before you want to change. And so if these parents are continuing, you know, using throughout a pregnancy, giving birth and still using, they haven't changed so far. Why are they going to change? Maybe removing their kids is the wake-up call that they need to change, because they didn't change while they were pregnant. They didn't change after the babies were born. What's going to motivate them to change? Maybe removing their kids. And if removing their kids didn't get them to change, then why would we give them their kids back?
Then
Nothing's going to. And so we're almost doing a disservice to the parents and a disservice to the kids by not removing their kids. And it is our job as human beings and stewards, like you said, stewards, protecting these kids. They can't protect these kids. We need to make those decisions for them.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. They're not in a mental state to make that decision for them, so we have to do that.
And it's not loving to have rock bottom be they kill their kid.
No.
Like, that's not loving to them.
No.
It's not loving to the siblings that had to watch that happen. That is not loving to anybody. And honestly, I'd rather have rock bottom be your kid get removed than you murdered your kid.
Oh, I have a case where, you know, a kid murdered, you know, not murdered, but shot a sibling. And, you know, of course, people are going to say, oh, you know, it's the gun, that kind of thing, but it's the parenting.
It's the parenting.
You know, and the environment that they're in, an environment that...
Yeah. And the gun was probably in the home because it's the culture. And in that culture, you need a gun, right? So you can't...
And drug-using parents.
Right, and you can't...
And you did that to the kid.
And you can't
affirm. And the state could have intervened before that happened.
And you can't affirm this culture and then say, well, guns are bad because... Yeah, right? You can't do that because you're saying we accept the whole culture. Well, in this culture, they shoot everybody. They shoot each other up, you know? I just got back from Detroit. Guns were going off all the time, you know? Yeah.
Or sexual abuse cases where... You know, sexual abuse happens in the home, and then you keep them in the home, and then the next sibling sexually abused, and it's like you see the pattern, you know it's going to happen. Why do you think it's any different? It could have been prevented. Oh, just because it happened once, it's not going to happen again. Really? Well, did you know? So I learned this. This is new knowledge to me. So, like, if a child dies in a home. And it's something you may want to research and look into. So if a child dies in a home accidentally, it drops off in a year. So then
what drops off in a year?
Like that record. So like the child abuse, like the DCYF record. So like there's like these what is called like these.
Is it almost like a background? Like
it's like a background or a factors piece of it.
And after a year of you killing or malnourish, you know, and a child dies, that it falls off.
It sort of like falls off, and
they
so
don't
it's like
consider it.
It's not considered a risk factor basically anymore. So then there's been a few cases in our state where like a child has died under mysterious circumstances, and then another child has died under mysterious circumstances, and they're like not convicted of crimes. It's like.
That's
pretty sketchy, and what's going on?
That's insanity.
That doesn't sound right to me.
It doesn't.
Or the simple, okay, so I don't know what the stats are most recently. You may be more up to date, and maybe we hear on Monday at the oversight committee of what the current death rate is. But I think it's interesting that and when I first saw the stats, I was like, I'll be honest, I was like, 92 kids. Well, that's not that bad. I mean, That's a lot of kids, but I mean, considering like Narcan, and it could be a lot worse, you know.
90, and let's make it clear. It's 92 that are near death and death combined. Okay,
yes,
go ahead.
But then they just left out that there's been almost, well, now it's, I'm sure, over 800 kids that have been given Narcan in our state to save their lives. That's not even part of the statistics.
And this statistic is not from DCYF. It's just like total, or
So 800 kids in our state have been given Narcan to save their lives.
well, that's near death.
That's near
If
death,
you
but they're
need-
not counting it in that other statistic.
If you need Narcan, you are going to die.
Yes, that's near death, right? Like, because if you need Narcan to save your life, that is near death, but that's not even being counted in the statistics.
That doesn't make any sense.
But it's sort of making numbers.
It's making the numbers, it's manipulating the numbers, really. It's manipulating them to what they want to hear. Again, it goes back to that echo chamber. They put the people in place around them. Yeah. Well,
And I mean, there's what they have to report and the 12 months and stuff like that. But it's like, look, 800 kids in our state have had to be given Narcan this year to save their lives. That's a problem.
that is a problem.
That's a problem.
Golly, as we talk, it's just such a gray zone, but we have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere.
We have to start with changing the House bill or removing it, whatever that looks like. Then we have to change our judicial system and allow social workers to protect kids. Because, you know, there are some really great social workers out there, and
Absolutely.
I feel like sometimes I'm all about giving people the benefit of the doubt, and I feel like overall DCYF in general, there are good people that want to make a difference, but their hands are tied. But if we give them all the opportunities and the laws change and things are still failing, then, you know, that speaks for itself. But right now, there's very little that social workers can do, and I don't know that people recognize that. There's a lot of blame on DCYF right now, and it's easy to point fingers at DCYF, and I get that. But having worked with a lot of social workers, many social workers are just as frustrated with the system as I am.
They are.
And, you know, it's hard for them. And the turnover is incredible because, you know, you want to help and you're beating your head against a wall and you can't really help. And so you leave because you really realize you can't make a difference. So you have to change this, and you have to get the judges to understand that kids need to come first, and children's rights come before parents' rights.
Yeah.
Really.
And backing up even to the point where it's like, okay, well, where do we start? What do I do? I mean, I'm just one person in one community. Well, I'm one person in one community that has a representative in Olympia. What you do, you pick up that phone. You send that email, and you say, repeal House Bill 1227, or read House Bill 1227 for yourself. Know as you're hearing our stories that we're presenting to you, see how House Bill 1227 is playing out. Then look at that bill. I mean, write a solution, send it to your legislator. But we need every individual person to be contacting their legislators, because otherwise, you know, they're supposed to represent you. That is their job, to represent you. I had a representative tell me, oh, there was this one issue, and I got about 3,000 emails, but they blew that issue off. So if 3,000 emails is not getting them to bat an eye, this is just what we're up against. We need more than that. So whatever area of Washington State you live in, please do your research. Read the Ombuds reports. See what's going on, because these are your children. This is on our watch, and we need to engage with our leaders. Show up to rallies. Make appointments to go visit with them and say, hey, this is a problem. Talk to your local teachers, doctors, talk to transportation groups, because they're everywhere. We have all of these in our communities. Talk to Head Start. Say, what are you seeing? Hear them and encourage your friends and family and yourself. make a change. You have to be the change. Oh, I wore my key today. So if you haven't been with us since 2018, when we first started, this is what we made in the very beginning. It's called the key to change. And every time I would say, we need you, I would shake my key because there's a problem and you're the key to change. Yeah. So, I mean, man, I'm so happy that you came today. I'm praying that this message and your perspective is amplified throughout Washington State. And I love that you have the authority in multiple ways to speak truth to these issues. And I am praying that your voice is heard throughout Washington State and people are fired up and it causes action. So I appreciate you so much for being here.
Can I
please add it?
You may not want to include this because it may be disheartening to hear. But about 4 years ago, I got heavily involved in legislation. I formed a coalition and advocated for rate changes in our industry because, since its existence, there had been no rate changes in our industry as visitation supervisors. And so I got, probably 70% of all the providers together, and I met with 84 of the legislators across the state and scheduled all these appointments and met with legislators and grassroots and did a whole bunch of work, and we were successful in getting rate changes, and it was great. But I got heavily involved in understanding how our state worked. And so I pay attention to politics now. I tend to be a little bit more, sometimes I wish I could just be ignorant because ignorance is bliss sometimes.
I agree.
But I pay attention to what's happening in our state. And sometimes I feel like our state is so broken that our voices don't matter. So let me give an example. Are you familiar with the Parental Bill of Rights?
I'm sorry, say it again.
The Parental Bill of Rights?
Yes.
You know what happened with that?
What?
Okay. So a couple years ago, we as citizens gathered enough signatures to say, hey, we as citizens want this to be modified because we as parents want more rights when it comes to our kids. So we gathered enough signatures and we took it to our legislation and say, hey, this is important to us. We want to get this fixed. Parents want more rights to know what's going on with their kids in regards to keeping their kids safe, what their medical history is, what's happening in schools, all that kind of stuff. Well, there is a little loophole within our legislation that the legislation can decide to take it to the citizens and they can make those adjustments.
You're fine.
Or the legislation can make those adjustments. They can say, okay, we'll address that. Thank you for bringing that to attention. We'll address it. And then that cuts the citizens out, and then legislation has all rights to make those changes, right? So that's what our legislation did. Said, okay, we take you seriously. We'll fix it. Don't worry about it. So then this last session, legislation got together, and they made adjustments to Parental Bill of Rights. Well, they did not give parents more rights. They gave parents less rights, such as now it used to be that you as a parent had to be informed of all sexual misconduct, crimes against your kids, all that kind of stuff.
And
now only if it happens on school campus. So if a school is aware that the teacher and the kid has a relationship, as long as it's not on campus, they don't have to inform you about it. Your kid can now take, medications, all this kind of stuff, right? Not common sense, not what parents wanted. Because remember, all these parents gathered these signatures to say, we don't want this to pass.
And this is what happened.
And this is what happened. So when this bill was up you saw the biggest turnout of people going in, because when a legislation bill is there, you can sign up to give testimony, and you can go in and you can say, yay, I support the bill, or nay, I don't support the bill. The biggest history, next to the taxes, in our state history of the public commenting in, 18,000 or 22, it was massive that signed in and say, we do not support this bill. And our state still passed it.
So we need to vote these people out.
So we need to vote these people out. And I'm not for protests, because I feel like protests sometimes go bad, but I'm also how come we can protest no kings and we can protest, illegal immigrants and that kind of stuff? We can gather massive people, even in our own state. Why aren't we protesting child abuse? Why can't people gather at our Capitol and say, this is not okay? We can go against federal things. I mean, look at how many people have gathered over the last year for miscellaneous protests. Why are we not gathering at our Capitol and saying, let's save our kids, let's fix this? I mean, maybe that's what needs to happen. And I mean, I've never been part of a protest like that. I mean, I see them on TV, and sometimes they go bad, and usually they're done by the left. But I mean, the left's got to think that this is important too. This is babies' lives. This isn't a left. This isn't a right. This is a bipartisan issue. We're human, and these are children.
This is a human issue.
This is a human issue. Let's all go to the Capitol. Maybe that's what needs to happen in order for them to listen.
I think you're right.
Because the letters and the signatures and the nays don't seem to be working. We need to shout this from the rooftops. So every state in the United States is frowning upon us. Look at what's happening in Washington State. How can they do that? Maybe we need to be shunned in order for there to be a difference, because our legislation isn't listening to us. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I'm spreading the word, and I think everybody should do, but I just fear it's not enough.
Yeah, but ultimately we have to try.
Yes.
I mean, I'm right there with you.
Said, you don't have to
No, I love it.
As an honest situation.
No, I understand. I mean, and that's an honest look at where we're at. Yeah. I mean, it's an honest look for me. I moved back to this state. I was gone for 5.5 years. And I was feeling defeated, like what has happened? What has happened to our state? I mean, it's not only, I think I made a joke. I didn't get shot in Detroit just to come home to my home state of Washington to get shot. But that's what I'm looking at. When I felt safer in Detroit, right, I did. I felt safer walking down the streets of downtown Detroit than I do in the streets of downtown Seattle.
That says a lot.
Yeah, I didn't want to come back. I did not want to come back. I love Detroit. I love the people. And anyway, but I'm here. I'm here. My family, my extended family has been sick. My family's here to take care of family. Mm-hmm. And I'm here, and I have kids. I have a granddaughter. I'm going to have more grandchildren. And by golly, if we're going to stay here, we have to try to not lose hope. Mm-hmm. We have to. As long as there's breath in our lungs, we can fight. We have to fight for safety. We have to fight, and I love parent rights. I mean, I'm a homeschool mom, I'm a Christian. Like, these are things, I love our rights. Mm-hmm. So when I say that children's rights need to come first, like, we got to keep kids alive. Yeah. We can't, we just have to stop, and we have to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so I know I've been very discouraged. I've been feeling more encouraged since we started mm-hmm. fostering change, because I'm meeting people like you, and I see the fire, and I was like, we need to get this word out. Like, there are people in the trenches fighting this fight, and you guys are tired. Mm-hmm. So you need some reinforcements. I want to be that reinforcement, right? Yes. I'm trying to come and say, we got this. Like, we're here for you. We have your back. Viewers, we want you to have our back, right? We need to come in. We need to lock shields. And I love your idea. We need a rally. We need a huge rally. In Olympia, we need this insanity to stop, and yeah, can we fix the whole state? What we can reach certain groups, right? And we have the access to our testimony, our story. Children, right? Foster care, you, right? You're a living, walking, breathing testimony, and your message is huge. So don't lose hope.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be at the Capitol. I think January. It's gonna be like my first rally, but January 14th, I think.
Are you going to be with Keeping Kids Safe? Is going to have that rally?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I hope lots of people show up and support it, because we need people to be there and support it and make a difference, because we got to change this. Because I think the statistic was like every other day a child's dying, and that's not okay.
Yeah, and again, it's not like driving down the road and getting in a car accident and boom, dead. It's torture.
Yeah.
It's torture.
It's horrific.
It's starvation. It's being taped to a toilet and being beat as a 4-year-old. It's being taped to a hotel wall, have the crap beat out of you, and dying. And these are the stories. These aren't nice little death is not nice, but these aren't nice, normal deaths. These are brutal deaths on the most innocent of our civilians.
Yep.
The most innocent, vulnerable, and we have to stop it. At least do our very best because, again, we are the adults.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to wrap us up. I greatly appreciate you driving 3.5 hours to be here. It means a lot. It means a lot. And yeah, thank you. And thank you to all of our listeners. We appreciate you. We appreciate you sharing these messages. We thank you so much for going back and listening to the content. I'm new at this. I've never podcast or done anything like this, so I'm trying to do it justice. I'm trying to do these amazing stories justice, and we're doing our very best to amplify the voice of people who are living this, and we need your support. And I would really ask, too, not only to show up for rallies and contact your legislators, please consider being a monthly sponsor with us. We're in a spot right now. I mean, we're pouring, our team's pouring our finances into it, which is fine and great. We're pouring our time and our finances, but we really do need partners. We have editors that we pay to get this message across, and we need help to keep going because we have such good content. We want to come out with it weekly, but we can't afford to come out with it weekly. Right now we're making it happen, but this is not a long-term goal. So please consider going to our website, becoming a monthly sponsor with us. It just helps lock shields with us as we amplify these stories because they need to be heard. They need to be heard by every citizen of Washington State. They need to be a warning to states that are looking at adopting similar policies as Washington State. And these stories need to go out to our legislators that we, the citizens, you're not lining up with us. You're not hearing us, and we need change. And our children are our priority. Thank you again. Thank you for listening to Change the Story. If today's episode moved you, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share with friends. The more voices we unite, the stronger our call for change becomes. Until next time, let's stand together, putting our hope in the one who makes all things new, knowing that together we will change the story.